Today I am giving you the definitive guide to dialing in the perfect Avenged Sevenfold guitar tone. This video is going to be part one of a 3-part series on the topic. Along the way, I'm going to cover dialing in the band's in-studio or album tone versus their live tone. I'm going to cover the style of guitar tone the band uses and look at some of the philosophies and goals behind dialing that in. Finally, I am going to cover the gear that the band uses both in studio and live to achieve their signature sound. So stick around. I'm Ray with Hillwinter Music, and my goal with this video is to share information that I wish I had when I was a guitar player starting out. I love this band, I love their sound, I've spent a lot of time researching to try and get it right, and I'm really excited to share that with you today. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Both of these help me to produce content like this. And if you hate the video, feel free to give it a dislike. I love democracy. Before I get started into how to dial in an Avenged Sevenfold style tone, I want to talk about where we're at today. There is more information available than ever before online on how to dial in a guitar tone. So I do encourage you to check out some channels like URM Academy or Joey Sturge's Tones. They're not necessarily from the same genre as Avenged Sevenfold, but they have fantastic content on the basics of dialing in a guitar tone and recording one. So I encourage you to check them out. If you're a fan of Avenged Sevenfold, check out the Discord. That's the Death Bats Club. There's lots of people in there with a ton of knowledge. My favorite resource that I've been able to access is the Synyster Guitar School. My favorite part is the forum. It is a goldmine of valuable information when it comes to their sound and the gear they've used. Also, if you're an Axe Effects user, Synyster Gates, the guitar player for Avenged Sevenfold, has actually released his preset that he uses live. You can download that for free on the Fractal Audio forum. That is the preset he uses for his live tone currently, which is a great segue into the first thing I want to discuss, which is the difference between live guitar tone and studio guitar tone. Now, a lot of the differences between these two types of guitar tone stem from logistical things within the music industry. Typically, bands will start with a studio tone. They will shape what they want in studio with tons of gear, tons of amplifier choices, and a lot of different recording techniques. And then the live tone that they use ends up being a stripped down version of that because they can't carry as much gear on the road. They might record 10 guitar tracks on a song, but then live they only have 2 guitar players. At that point, you have to strip down your parts or you have to rely on backing tracks. The other thing is that a lot of album tones will often change per song. They may use different amplifiers, whereas when you're playing live and you're dealing with a front of house engineer running the soundboard, those guys really need you to have a consistent sound, and that way they can dial in how you sound in the venue and you won't keep changing your sound. That makes their lives easier. So with that in mind, the first thing I want to discuss about Avenged Sevenfold's in-studio tone is quad tracking. Now, if you've been playing and recording guitar for a long time, you might already know all of these studio tricks. If you're a beginner or even an intermediate, you may have never come across these. So what is quad tracking? Well, first I have to talk about double tracking, and then I'll get to quad tracking. Whenever a hard rock or metal band records a rhythm guitar in studio, typically they record the part twice, and then they'll pan one version of that into the left speaker and one version into the right speaker, or left and right headphones, depending how you're listening. What this does is it creates a wall of sound effect, because if you record just one track and run it up the middle, it sounds like one person playing. It sounds intimate, it sounds close, but that's not the sound you're going for in metal and hard rock. You want a wall of sound. So you record it twice, and that way the differences between each performance tell your ears and your brain that there is 2 guitars playing, one on each side, and that creates that wall of sound effect. And no, you can't record your guitar just once and then copy and paste it, because then there will be no differences between the performance and your brain will recognize them as just one guitar. Now, quad tracking, which is the technique Avenged Sevenfold uses on virtually all of their albums, all of their songs, all of their rhythm tones, takes double tracking a step further. Instead of recording 2 performances, pan to the left and right, you're recording 4 performances with 2 on each side. And that creates an even bigger wall of sound in your headphones or your speakers. In addition to shaping the sonic size of the recording, double tracking and quad tracking also affects the guitar tone, because what Avenged Sevenfold does when they record these quad tracks is they will use 2 separate amps and 2 separate guitar tones. They will have 1 amp or tone pan to the left and right, and then the other amp or tone pan to the left and right, 4 tracks in total. So they are combining the sound of 2 amps to get a sound you could not create another way, and to give themselves a sonic signature that we've all come to know and love. And they've pretty well stuck to the same formula their whole careers, with a few minor exceptions that I will mention throughout this video. Now I want to show you some examples of what I talked about with single tracking, double tracking, and quad tracking. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pre-recorded myself playing the song Critical Acclaim by Avenged Sevenfold. I've done the guitar tones properly. I have some drums here. And to start out, I'm just going to show you how it sounds when you have a single guitar playing the main verse riff on its own. It is panned straight up the center. Let's have a listen. And then, of course, I can pan that single guitar left or right. But that's just one guitar track all by itself. I'm going to demonstrate what it's like if I just copy and paste that guitar instead of playing 2 performances, playing the part twice, just recording it once, and then copying, pasting it, and then panning both guitar tracks to the left and right. Have a listen. So it still sounds like the guitar is coming straight up the center, even though I have the tracks panned left and right. I'm going to show you how it sounds when you play the part twice and pan those left and right. 2 separate performances. Have a listen. Let's go back and forth between the copy and pasted guitar and then the double tracked guitar. Makes a world of difference. Now, I'm going to show you folks quad tracking, which is what the band does. I'll start with double tracking here again. And then this is quad tracking. Now watch what happens if I turn off the 2 additional tracks partway through. You can hear I'll switch them in and out, so you can go from double tracking to quad tracking and hear a back and forth of that. There you have it. Now, there are some exceptions where the band hasn't used quad tracking. Typically with clean guitars, they will either double track or they'll just do a single track, like the beginning of the song Buried Alive, where they want it to sound just like one guitar player in an intimate setting where you're just listening to them solo play. Another great example of where the band steps away from quad tracking is the song Nightmare. Now, I think this is a fantastic example of how you as a guitar player can use double tracking versus quad tracking to shape how big you want the sonic stage of your songs or your recordings to be. Let's have a look at that quickly. I have recorded the guitars and programmed the drums here for that song myself. I've tried to match the guitar tone as closely as possible using the techniques I'm showing you in this video. Let's have a listen to that track real quick here. All right, you get the idea. I have all the guitars here. For this demonstration, I'm going to mute that lead guitar during the second part of the verse. I'll show you it just so you know which one I'm talking about. Okay, let's have a look at the first part of the verse. What that is, it is just double tracked with a JCM 800. I'll take the drums out. All right, and then for the second part of that verse, they quad tracked it. They added in the 2 Bogner amps for the high sizzly part of the tone. I'll let you hear what those sound like on their own real quick, and then I'll show you them together. All right, now I'll show you those 2 tones together. All right, and if I show you the transition here between the first part of the verse and the second part of the verse, you will hear how going from double track guitars to quad track guitars makes the entire song sound larger. Have a listen. And now I'm just going to go back and forth between removing and adding back in the second set of guitars so you can hear the size difference. There you have it. When you record your guitar twice or 4 times, it's important to play as tightly as possible and make the recordings as close to one another as possible. It's the subtle differences between the recordings that make it sound like a large wall of sound, but if you play sloppy or you make the performances too different, then it sounds inarticulate and it becomes harder for the listener to hear what's going on. And I think across Avenged Sevenfold's career, you can actually hear some of that in their recordings. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but when you listen to City of Evil, everything is really tight because all they were doing was double tracking on that album, believe it or not. We'll talk about that a bit later. Then they moved to their self-titled album and they quad tracked everything, and it sounds bigger, but it also sounds a bit more mushy. And then you move to an album, Nightmare, where they are also quad tracking, but it sounds a lot tighter. You can hear the guitar a lot more distinctly on that album, and I think that could be because their playing improved along the way. That concludes part 1 of this video series. In part 2, I'm going to show you how to actually dial in the 2 amplifiers that the band uses. If you found this video useful, like I said, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel so I can make more content like this. Leave a comment if there's more information you need to know. I'm happy to post links to set you in the right direction. I hope this information was helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.